The moment her fingers wrapped tightly around my arm, my entire world stopped. I had never seen her before in my life, yet the fear in her eyes felt painfully real. Her breathing was uneven, her hands were trembling, and before I could ask what was happening, she leaned close enough for only me to hear. She begged me to act like her husband for the next 40 minutes because if I didn't, she believed everything she had fought to escape would finally catch up with her. Across the crowded airport terminal, 3 men were slowly scanning every face, and the expression on her face told me this was far more than a misunderstanding. In that single moment, I had a choice: walk away and pretend I had never seen her, or trust a complete stranger whose eyes carried more fear than words could ever explain. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances can change someone's life forever, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in humanity, and subscribe to Tales of Kindness. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. I had landed in Chicago after a week-long business conference. My return flight home was delayed because of heavy storms, and like hundreds of other travelers, I found myself wandering through the terminal searching for coffee while checking the departure screens every few minutes. Everything about the day had been ordinary until that frightened young woman suddenly appeared beside me. She looked to be in her late 20s, dressed professionally, carrying only a small handbag and a boarding pass that was shaking in her hands. She wasn't crying, but it looked as though she had been holding back tears for hours. Without waiting for permission, she gently slipped her hand around my arm and rested her head briefly against my shoulder, making it appear as though we were a married couple reunited after a long trip. My heart pounded so loudly I thought everyone around us could hear it. Every instinct told me to pull away, yet something inside me noticed the genuine terror behind her forced smile. She wasn't acting for attention. She was surviving. As we slowly walked through the terminal, pretending to discuss vacation plans and family dinners, I noticed the 3 men she had mentioned. They weren't wearing uniforms. They weren't airport security. They simply moved with purpose, watching travelers carefully while speaking quietly into their phones. Whenever they looked in our direction, she squeezed my arm a little tighter. The next 20 minutes felt longer than any day of my life. Every step became part of an invisible performance. We stopped at a coffee stand. We laughed quietly about imaginary memories. We even pretended to argue over where our children wanted to spend Christmas. I had no idea who she really was, yet somehow our fake marriage became strangely believable. The more naturally we behaved, the less attention those men seemed to pay us. Eventually we found an empty seating area overlooking the runways. Keeping her smile in place, she finally explained everything in a voice so soft I could barely hear her. Her name was Emily. 2 years earlier she had worked as an accountant for a wealthy businessman whose charitable public image hid an empire built on financial fraud and intimidation. When federal investigators secretly approached her, she chose to cooperate. She handed over years of evidence, believing the truth would finally free countless innocent victims. Instead, her entire life collapsed. The businessman was arrested, but many loyal associates escaped prosecution. Some blamed Emily for destroying their fortunes. She entered witness protection for a period, moved between cities, changed jobs repeatedly, and tried rebuilding her life under constant anxiety. She had recently learned that several former associates had begun searching for her again after discovering her new identity. Earlier that morning she noticed one of those men following her into the airport. She had tried losing him several times before realizing she needed something stronger than hiding behind crowds. She needed to become invisible by appearing completely ordinary. A married woman traveling with her husband would attract far less attention than a frightened woman constantly looking over her shoulder. She apologized over and over for dragging a stranger into danger. I looked at her exhausted face and realized how lonely courage often becomes. Everyone celebrates heroes after the danger has passed, but very few people stand beside them while they're still afraid. I could have walked away. Instead, I stayed. The next 20 minutes became an emotional balancing act between fear and compassion. We visited bookstores, bought sandwiches neither of us could eat, laughed at magazines we never opened, and wandered slowly through the terminal as though we had nowhere important to be. Every few minutes I quietly checked behind us. The 3 men kept searching. Then something unexpected happened. Airport security officers suddenly approached us. For one terrifying second I thought everything had gone terribly wrong. Emily's face lost all color. One officer politely asked whether everything was all right because another traveler had reported a visibly distressed woman. Before Emily could panic, I calmly explained that my wife was an anxious flyer and became nervous before long flights. Emily nodded convincingly, even forcing a small embarrassed smile. The officers apologized and wished us a safe journey. As they walked away, Emily whispered that I had probably saved her life twice in less than an hour. Eventually we reached the departure gate where federal agents quietly waiting near the entrance made subtle eye contact with Emily. She relaxed for the first time since grabbing my arm. Earlier, during one of our stops, she had secretly managed to send her emergency contact message. The authorities had responded immediately. The three men disappeared the moment they noticed the agents. No dramatic arrests followed. No action movie ending unfolded. Sometimes evil simply retreats when it realizes people are no longer alone. Before boarding, Emily finally smiled without forcing it. She thanked me for believing someone I had absolutely no reason to trust. She admitted she had almost given up on asking anyone for help because fear had convinced her that strangers only looked away. I told her something my late father often repeated. He believed that every person eventually becomes the answer to someone else's prayer without ever realizing it. Perhaps that afternoon, I had unknowingly become hers. Months passed. Life returned to normal. Or so I believed. One rainy Saturday morning, a handwritten letter arrived at my apartment. There was no return address. Inside was a wedding photograph. Not ours. Emily stood beside another man, smiling brighter than I remembered seeing in the airport. Beside the picture was a short note explaining that after the investigation finally concluded and those responsible were brought to justice, she had found peace again. She had met someone kind, married, and started rebuilding the future she thought had been stolen forever. At the bottom she had written words I will never forget. She said that for 40 minutes inside an airport terminal, a complete stranger reminded her that goodness still existed in the world. Because of that, she found the courage to keep believing in tomorrow. I still keep that photograph inside the drawer of my desk. Whenever life convinces me that the world has become cold, I look at it and remember that kindness rarely announces itself with applause. Sometimes it simply looks like one frightened stranger reaching for another person's arm and quietly asking for help. And sometimes, the smallest act of compassion changes a life forever. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Tales of Kindness so we can continue sharing stories that remind us hope is never truly lost. Special request, comment below with one act of kindness you've received from a stranger, or one you've shared with someone else. Your story might inspire another person today. Because in the end, we rarely remember the flights we took or the places we visited. We remember the people who appeared exactly when we needed them most, proving that even in a crowded airport full of strangers, one simple decision to help can become the beginning of someone else's second chance.